Sahara Desert is one of the last places on Earth where someone could go and never return. Into this wasteland ventures a team of young fossil hunters. Here there are places where no human has set foot, and a beast not yet known waits to be discovered. The Sahara is the world's largest desert, 3 million square miles of emptiness. Yet here in North Africa, a paleontologist from the University of Chicago named Paul Sereno seeks an oasis of bones. Few outsiders have gone before him, even fewer fossil hunters.
Africa, more than any other place, for me as a paleontologist, is a great frontier. It's a place where anything you dig out of the ground is something new. It's a place where you can tell a story about a whole time period. It's really a place for discovery.
The Sahara is one of the most hostile places on Earth. Out of it have come few bones, and so few bone hunters have gone in. Hunting fossils here is like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of America. And yet needles turn up. In 1990, a British expedition journeyed to Niger to look for fossil fish in the Sahara. Paul Sereno went along to look for dinosaurs. By sheer luck, he stumbled upon a field of bones, fossils sticking out of the ground as far as he could see. He dubbed it the dinosaur's graveyard. When he went back to dig it up, Sereno found two completely new species. One was a fearsome carnivore Sereno named Afrovenator, or African hunter. With its short arms and long teeth, Afrovenator resembled its famous North American cousin, T. rex, but only distantly. The other creature was a plant eater. Its bones revealed it too had a cousin in North America, but there the similarity ended. It was as if Africa had its own breed of dinosaurs. One way to prove it was to find a new dinosaur in another part of the continent. In 1995, Sereno went back.
I've always been a rebel without a cause as a kid. I found a cause now. That cause is unearthing really whole new chapters of dinosaur life in Africa.
One chapter remains unfinished. In 1954, the French paleontologist René Lavocat spent months wandering alone in Morocco searching for fossils. Lavocat found only fragments of bones, but they belonged to a beast found nowhere else. He thought it might be a bizarre-looking meat-eater called Spinosaurus. German paleontologists had unearthed such a creature in Egypt in 1914. But in World War II, during an Allied raid on Munich, the bones were destroyed, and Spinosaurus was once more extinct. Picking up Lavocat's cold trail, Paul Sereno hopes to finish the job he started by finding an entirely new creature. Sereno assembled his team in Chicago and flew to London, where they picked up 4 Land Rovers, the vehicles that would get them through the desert. Then they began the trek across France and Spain toward their ultimate destination in Morocco. Never has so large an expedition been mounted for the Sahara. It took Sereno almost a year to organize this joint Moroccan-American venture, planning the logistics, gathering the supplies, and, most important, handpicking the team of 13, some professional, some amateur, but all enthusiastic. On a trip like this, endurance may count more than experience. In Spain, the team toasts their last hot shower with cold beer.
Here's to a reasonably complete sauropod with a skull.
But not with no ribs.
We have Gabrielle Lyon, or Gabe.
They call me Myosaurus, which means good mother, and so I need to discipline them. It's not a problem.
Then we have Hans Larsen, variously known as, what?
Solo,
who is a paleontologist. He also is handling the vehicles and lots of other things, and is very interested in helping describe and find the dinosaurs. Didier Dutaille, French paleontologist, shark enthusiast, and generally goes by the title of ambassador because he manages all complicated affairs. Dave Riccio, geologist and paleontologist. He's done a lot of dinosaur collecting. Chris Seedor, a young student, is along, I think, for his first major effort in the field, getting a lot of field experience here. And Paul McGuiney, one who has also been on several field excursions and has a long view of reptile evolution, and so he's along to help us out in the field. Jeff Wilson, who is our sauropod, the big dinosaur expert, who would love probably more than anyone else for us to find one of these huge, huge beasts.
Did we already toast to that? Let's toast it. Why not? Sauropods. That's not a good toast,
but... 11 days after setting out from London, the expedition reaches Tangiers in Africa. On the continent where mankind crawled out of prehistory, the origins of other species may yet emerge. At dawn, prayers from 100 mosques awaken the medieval city of Fez. Bastion of Islam, Fez is also one big open-air market.
Monsieur, combien pour litre? Pour kilo?
Kilo. Kilo.
Okay.
This morning, Gabrielle, Jeff, and Dave are hunting bargains, not fossils.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the price.
The Land Rovers will carry more than a ton of food. More than 150 pounds per person.
Combien?
Everything from tomatoes to beef, from milk to cheese, is dry.
2 kilos. 2 kilos.
The fresh fruit and vegetables bought today will be the last they see for a long time. They'll be gone for 2 months. Sereno's hopes of finding a new dinosaur rest partly on a creature known only by name, the Egyptian find called Spinosaurus, a carnivore like no other. It hints that on the path of evolution, Africa's dinosaurs took a detour.
The biggest and best clue is Spinosaurus from Egypt. It's a huge predator, and we don't know that much about it, but what we have tells us it's very strange. It's got
backbone with very high spines that held a sail.
Spinosaurus, or thorn lizard, thrived 100 million years ago. 40 feet long, it was the strangest of all the flesh eaters, with spines rising almost 6 feet from its backbone, and a long jaw with teeth like steak knives. It probably used its sail to control its body temperature. Under the midday sun, it shed heat through thin blood vessels. On cool mornings, it turned its sail toward the sun to warm up. If Africa could produce such a strange predator, perhaps it harbored an entire continent of curiosities.
There's the history of tantalizing clues to what life on Africa might have been like. We know that when the continents were connected, the animals were a little bit more similar, at some points a lot more similar. And we know that we have some clues that Africa really was on its own path.
250 million years ago, all the continents were bunched together in one supercontinent called Pangaea, where dinosaurs mingled freely. Africa started to drift away 150 million years ago, near the end of the Jurassic. By 130 million years ago, Africa had finally broken free. So had its dinosaurs. Isolated in a hothouse the size of a continent, nature began to experiment with the bizarre.
And so we have the idea that possibly on different islands, continents, whole different kinds of animals came into being. It looks like at least the predators and possibly the herbivores had gone off on their own. And how different and bizarre these animals are is what we're really trying to narrow down. How did the isolation at a continent level affect dinosaur evolution? We think something different was happening here.
In the search for the dinosaurs that no one else has found, the greatest risk in the hostile Sahara may be to reputations. Where failure leads, few will follow. If Serino's team turns up nothing, they may close the book on Africa's dinosaurs before the first chapter is even written. To find fossils, fossil hunters look for rocks as old as the dinosaurs, 100 million years old. Armed with the report of Moroccan geologists who are aiding his expedition, Serino decides to make a side trip to a place called Anwal.
Luckily, we have the geologists who are working on the geologic map of Anwal, so it should be a little easier for us to get a handle on where the rocks are and where those beds are that we're looking for. And well, of course, I'd like to find a sauropod. I mean, anytime you ask me that, I'm going to say sauropod.
There are few regions in the Sahara where rocks as old as the dinosaurs are exposed. Anwal is one of them. It lies almost 300 miles southeast of Fez in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains. Serino's predecessors in Morocco have mostly been loners who wandered in and out of the Sahara. Men like the nomadic Lavocat, who may have held in his hands the only bones of a beast found nowhere else. Whether he did remains a mystery.
First fossils were discovered 40 years ago, and no team has been in there yet. And so we're thrilled to be the first team in there. There's a lot of interest in this area. We got here first.
For the next week, the team will try its hand in Anwal. The first task is deciding where to look.
If you climb this ridge, you see a really long sort of tongue coming down. So maybe that's this ridge here.
Yeah, that's probably that.
Okay.
People can have collecting bags, so we'll have some collecting bags. And we're going to try and establish some names if we find places where there's
certain amounts of bones and we'll satellite locate them. We're going to try and keep within sight of each other, and so we get the feel of these beds. Some fragments of dinosaur bone have been found in them, and some mammal teeth have been found in them. And it's about 400 or 500 meters thick. That's a big thickness before you get to another thickness before you get to the limestone. There's about 15 miles and it gets narrower as we go down. So we'll see what we can cover today.
You could use your field knife in the Hyatt.
We're going to go over there together until we actually decide, that we're in the right age bed, right? Before we split off.
The team is standing on rocks 100 million years old, but finding fossils among them is like panning for gold, mostly a matter of luck and sweat. Whether the Earth will yield any fossils at all depends on the Earth's condition.
Seems pretty flat all the way through.
Since the days of the dinosaurs, the land has literally undergone a sea change. Today, this is a cool, windswept desert. 90 million years ago, anything that moved here was swimming, and the land was underwater. 100 million years ago, the water was confined to lakes and swamps.
But is that another depositional layer, like something else stuck on there?
Because you can see it on the edge there.
But few dinosaurs ever had the chance to evolve into fossils. The bones of most were eaten away by the elements. Perhaps only 1 in a million was ever preserved. Even when the Earth yields no fossils, it yields clues.
First, you can find a fossil. That's the best clue. But if you don't find the fossil, then you can look at the environments to see, well, do we look more, or is there's something, clues here telling us that fossils aren't here.
One of the fastest ways to tell what kind of sediment you're dealing with is just to taste it and chew it for a while.
Because with just 1 or 2 bites, you can determine how much grit is in a piece of sediment. It's a little gritty, but very, very, very slight.
Just a touch of salt.
Yeah.
In turn, the sediment reveals the nature of the land, whether it was once forest, riverbed, lake bottom, or desert. The soil is embedded with gypsum, a common mineral that originates in salt lakes. When the water dries up, gypsum remains behind.
This is really a beautifully thick layer. This is about maybe 6 inches thick. One down the hill is almost a meter thick, and that's the most gypsum I've ever seen in my life.
It's a bad sign. If there's gypsum in the soil, there would have been salt in the water. Every lake and swamp would have been briny, unfit to drink.
We're looking at a hostile environment to life in general and to preservation of fossils. We're an animal to wander into the area and keel over. Likely chance that this sediment is coming down so slow that it's going to rot. It will be taken up by scavengers long before it would ever have the chance of being covered. What you want is an environment, a higher energy environment, where the soil typically has more sand in it and comes over and covers over something, a carcass, very quickly and preserves it as a fossil.
The team finds a few marine fossils, but no dinosaurs. After 7 disappointing days in Anwa, they head south to a region in Morocco called the Kemkem. It lies near the Algerian border, a hazy area still in dispute, as surreal as the landscape itself. Leaving the chilly Atlas Mountains, they enter one of the hottest regions on Earth, a place with few plants, few people, few signs of life.
There's a certain aura about the Sahara because they're so little known, and a vastness that you get when you enter the Sahara, which you don't get anywhere else in the world. It's awe-inspiring when you're in the field and you realize how much of this land has never been walked before.
of the few to walk it, René Lavocat managed to conjure a beast from a few fragments of bone. Lavocat may have glimpsed a new creature, or only a mirage. After 3 weeks, Sereno's expedition draws near its destination, the Kemkem. There lies the last hope of finding what they've come for, proof that Africa's dinosaurs are a breed apart. For 40 days and 40 nights they wandered in the desert. Then they found something.
Four in the morning, Paul came over to my cot and was like, Gabe.
I have tears in my eyes. I said, you don't know what we've discovered. We've discovered something really important.
In the lonely Sahara, they had come face to face with a creature no human had ever seen.